Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 19th episode of Chapters, Real People, Real Stories. Tonight, I welcome in friend Natalie Taylor Gebhard. I'm actually going to just call her Natalie Gebhard tonight. We kind of established that earlier, but Natalie, it's good to have you here. We did have a lot of comments. This is going Facebook Live. I know much of you are probably catching this on YouTube or Spotify later on, and we just really appreciate the support. Tons of comments coming in from Natalie's friends. But before we get to touching base in the comments again, Natalie, let's go ahead and introduce you to the show. So again, I know this is your first podcast experience, but how's it feel to be on Chapters for the first time?
I'm honored, honestly. I'm humbled that you asked me on here. That that my story might help anybody. That getting to know me is worth an hour of somebody's time. It's crazy times. We're busy, and for you to want me on here, for people to come and listen, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I love it. I'm glad that you're open to doing this. I think Natalie she's a very strong woman, but I think she has some very fascinating stories that she can share tonight. Some of them are very powerful. I'm sure that's going to be difficult to hear, but these are different. Again, this is what Chapters is about. It's real stories and real people that I know. So it's been just an absolute honor to have so many people in the community within Perry County from all ages come on the show and talk to you. Like I told Natalie during the pregame show, that we're just kind of, it's like a way for us to kind of hang out and catch up again. It's been a while since I've seen Natalie. I think it was in the hospital actually with Mama Malcomson was in the ER, and Natalie was there taking care of Mama Malcomson. But before we get started, Natalie, I did want to go back and just acknowledge the comments that came in, and including the ones that we talked about a little bit earlier, which was Katie Thorne, who started all off saying the Thorns are here watching, and then Jeannie Hess also said hello, and Amber Roji, which we're going to be talking about her and her family tonight as well. She said, "So proud of you, my beautiful friend." Tara Lucas, she says, "Natalie is the bomb.com." And then Jamie Lynn says, "Hey, that's my cousin. Love you, girl."
Love you too.
And Katie Thorne had some more comments too. She ended up saying Nat is way cooler than basketball. So that was related to the comment about March Madness earlier. And then
Yeah.
Kaylin Hawhey, she says, my fave. She's one of the biggest influences on why I chose healthcare as my profession. I got to be by her side for a bit for some of her internship hours. So that's awesome. That's cool to hear that. You're already making Natalie start to cry.
Oh God, it's gonna be a long hour.
No, it didn't take very long. No, it's just awesome to have you here, Natalie. Like I said, we're just gonna dive right into chapter one. It's much like I told the previous guests before. This gives a chance for the audience that might not know Natalie or know her as well. You might be friends of mine and maybe not know her extremely well. It gets a chance to kind of get to know her as we talk to her throughout the show. So let's start with the foundation of your story, Natalie. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were born and raised, and also about your mother and father and any siblings you have?
Sure. So I was born at Perry County Hospital, the old hospital, 1985. I'm 36. I have lived and grown up in Tell City my whole life. I'll never go anywhere. I'm a total townie. I lived, about 7 blocks from my parents, have my whole life since I've moved out. Graduated high school, Tell City. So my parents, Mike and Angie Harding, just the absolute best people you could ever want as your parents. Hardworking, never says a bad word about anybody. They've worked hard their whole life to give me and my siblings, everything that we needed. They have been there for me since the moment that I've had children. They've always supported us. They've always done everything that they possibly could to help us. I mean, I couldn't have raised my kids without them. They've always been there whenever, we needed them. I have 2 siblings. I have older sister, April. She's 7 years older than me. She lives in Boonville with her husband and children. And then I have a younger brother, Lauren, who's 2 years younger than me. And he just bought a home in Tobinsport. So he's living the farm life right now with ducks and chickens and gooses, everything. So
Oh, that's awesome. It's cool to hear about your background with your parents and also your siblings as well. I'd love to ask you an organic question about your mother and father. If this could be about family life or your career too, because I like to ask a lot of my friends this, is whenever you talk about work ethic, you mentioned that earlier, and that attitude that you have. And I think we've talked about this over Messenger, just that I feel like you got to have that extra umph to be in the medical field that you can. Like, I don't have that. Like my older brother did. I think you have to have that extra strength to be able to be involved in something like that, or have the desire to pursue a career like that. It just can take a lot out of you emotionally and physically, I'm sure. But like for you going into that, like when you think about career in general, whether you worked back in high school, like we probably did, both of us back then, to now, and then also your family life, is there a lot of traits from your parents that you taken from that you kind of you apply to your family and your career now?
Yeah. So definitely from both of them, I got that, no matter what it is you're doing, whether you're working in a factory, whether, whatever it is that you're doing, just be as good as you possibly can at it, be kind to people, like take the time to talk to people, really develop those relationships and, make it the best situation that you can make it. My mom is, I mean, she's just the best person I've ever known. She's broke her back and worked hard her entire life, just like my dad. Um, he is hilarious. He is the jokester, but he's fiercely loyal. I think that I got both of those from him. He's a lot funnier than I am, but just, you know, your circle, like whoever that circle is, I mean, it's just fiercely protective and loyal. And my mom is, I mean, just, I swear you could ask anybody. She's the kindest person, just the sweetest, would just do anything in the world for anybody. And I hope, that I got some of that for her because, I mean, you want to be anybody. I mean, I would want to be my mom.
Yeah, actually, it's fitting too because Amber Roji just commented about your mom. She said, "Mama is the best," with a heart on there, so she
She
knows her well.
really is.
I think you did a
Yeah.
good job talking about it because it sounded like your parents really gave you a really good, solid foundation early on. Because
Yeah.
we probably know people too. Both of us do. I know I do that didn't have that weren't so fortunate growing up.
Yeah.
For different reasons, and that can make life a lot more challenging. It can make those harder chapters in your life a lot more difficult to deal with when you don't have that really good solid foundation. I can say the same thing, like in manufacturing and what I am now. I took a lot from my dad, but that about reliability and just him. He was one of those people you can probably describe the seasoned veterans that would just go in, do their job, and go home, and very family oriented. It also sounds to me, I've caught myself saying this word a lot about whenever my guests talk about their parents, is just being present. And it sounds like your dad and
Mhm.
your mom had that
Yeah.
trait about them alone, where it's not about what they say. It's sometimes, a lot of times, it's just about what they're doing, and it's just a matter of just being
Mhm.
there a lot of times. And I think you can agree with that on a lot. But Amber, thanks for the comment. And please continue to have the comments coming in. Katie Thorne just commented and said, "We love the Hardings." Said Angie is the most amazing soul. So awesome
Yeah.
comment, Angie. Thank you for that on there.
Me and Katie actually went with another friend of mine and my dad to um, that haunted hospital in Louisville.
Oh,
And
hospital,
yeah,
Waverly
yeah,
Hills.
yeah. So we went to Waverly with my dad and my sister and another friend of ours, Cody, and it was an absolute blast. And that's my dad. I mean, ghost hunting, just down to have a good time. I mean, just really cool.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of that because I haven't been to Waverly Hills yet myself. But I know it's something me and my wife want to do sometime. Lori Hammond also comments. She says, "Your mom is the sweetest person. I always love talking to her." So again, thank
Yeah,
you for the comments, Lori.
yeah.
But no, it's great stuff. I think that also what ties into the family, you kind of branch out from there, and we start talking about community. You mentioned going to school at Tell City. Now,
Mhm.
we both have grown up and lived in Perry County, so you can probably you can talk about Tell City or the town that you're from too, but even if you just wanted to talk about Perry County, this is a good opportunity to tell, like if you think of stories when it comes to town, or if you just, when you think of this area that we've grown up in, what are some of the things that come to mind to you?
Whenever I think about Perry County, the things that stand out to me the most is like Schweitzer Fest and, you know, people that you haven't seen forever. And then, you're getting together. I just love that because, you know, the high school reunions are happening. You're seeing people that you haven't seen in a long time. Um, I think that our community also is just wonderful in the ways that, if there's been some type of personal tragedy that somebody's had or some kind of, devastating accident or something, I just think that we stand out for, pulling together and, helping people. And I just don't think that you have that a lot of places. I mean, there's always some type of bake sale at Nobles whenever you walk in for somebody that needs something, or there's somebody sharing, whatever story to try to help. And I just love that about here. There's such a sense of community and pride, and that always stood out to me about where I'm from.
Yeah, I love that. I can think of several comments there. I did want to acknowledge Katie Thorne's comment again. She said, "Best time ever." Talking about Waverly Hills.
Waverly Hills. Yeah.
But yeah, when you talk about Perry County, you talk about Tennessee. I grew up in Camilton, so even as a little kid, I've said this a lot on previous shows. When we're kids, it feels like our world is just so much smaller. So just like even our neighborhood's like a big deal, but branching out from there is like going on a big adventure or something like that. But now as an adult and me basically living like a nomad through my 20s, I was all over the place. I lived in Evansville and Boonville. I lived in Florida, lived back in Camilton, lived in Tell City. But like living in Tell City, especially the last like decade and everything, I felt like living here in the city itself has given me a lot more appreciation, not just for Tell City itself, but also for Perry County. Now that I've kind of branched around, it makes me think of that Schweitzer Fest. That's something that I don't know if of course, I don't think we even really had it last year because of the whole COVID experience.
No, yeah.
But the last time I could think of it, it's always a time when I think of it's like one big reunion for everybody, or whatever night you can make it. But it's also like the one night you can kind of semi get out of control and be an ass or make an ass of yourself if you want. I'm sure there's a lot of people that might be able to say that, but I've always had a good time down there because it's local and it's just a chance for everybody to catch up. I've always treated it like a big reunion, and sometimes you guys might have done this too, Natalie, where you guys have organized class reunions around that time, or you friends that have, and that we've done that before too. And so there's always that whole experience when you have there, or it kind of trickles on down to Brownies or wherever you used to go, like the Cantina, whenever it was the hot spot back whenever.
The Cantina. Yeah.
We still remember those days, but
been
so
there
you say 36, so you're below me. So I did want to acknowledge the comments again. And Mary Angela Huff Harding, there's a lot of names in there. She said, "My beautiful
That's my
girl,
mom.
so proud." Oh, Angela, crap. Well, it's awesome to actually meet you on here. But I want to say thanks for commenting. And I'll repeat that again because I think I cut myself off. But she said, "My beautiful girl, I'm so proud," and we're also. It's just an honor to have Natalie on her. She's doing fantastic so far. She's only cried like 3 times. So and her friends have made her do that, not me. But no, I mean, but no, I just love what you said about Perry County and everything. And I think the best thing to put a bow on that is just a lot of us can really say, when you really sit back and think about it, would you really want to grow up anywhere else? I mean, to me, I feel a sense of pride of I'm glad that I grew up here. I feel grateful to have a lot of friends that are still here and others that have branched out and live all over the country, but they still think of back home. Again, just to go back to some of the comments, Kaylin Hall, he says, I was always so excited to hop in the car with her. You can tell she's a mother because she always asked me if I needed or wanted anything during our time together. My dream is to work next to her one day. So hopefully that dream will come true, Kaylin.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
No, that's awesome. So this is a great experience. This is what I love about doing this, because we're able to have like a big conversation together with you guys through the comments. So I love the fact of how active it's been tonight. We're getting close to the end of chapter 1. I know it seems like we're blazing through it, Natalie, but this one could be a little bit more wide spanning, really, because we're going to talk about the education side. And this could be really every time about like high school or in college that we both have spent there. But like for me, I've shared stories in the past about memories from high school. You said you went to Tell City. It feels like a long time ago for us now, but like whenever you look back on your time back in high school, what are some of the things you miss? Like, is there memories you take from it? Is there certain teachers and different people that inspired you back then that stand out to you? What comes to mind?
So when I think about high school, like I said, I graduated in 2003. I was really active in softball. I was a cheerleader. So I was invested in sports and stuff like that. Loved, traveling, going to play away games. Loved just having, that group of girls that you were with. You know, I did apply myself in high school. I mean, I knew that I wanted to get, a higher level degree. So, I focused. I mean, I did I did okay. Um, and there was a lot of teachers that I had that were wonderful. I think that that's something I should have said previously about Tell City is as a student myself, and then now having kids, I really respect the school system and the teachers, and especially what we've had to go through for the last year. I think they've done an amazing job. But anyway, off track. So high school, was great. A couple that just stand out to me teachers was Mr. Lyons, Mr. Beckhart, just great, wonderful teachers that I had. Mrs. Godthab, Mrs. Buckman, oh, love her still. She's the reason why I read books like I do today, probably. So yeah, I mean, I had a great high school career. Nothing bad. Then I went on to, after I graduated high school, I went to Owensboro Community College. I drove back and forth, started in gen ed classes, had gotten my CNA through the HOSA program at the high school. So I had my CNA, and then a couple years after started nursing school after I got into college. Went through that, graduated college, I'm sorry, in 2009. And at the time, whenever I had graduated, I had been working in the ER at Perry County Hospital as an ER tech, trying to kind of expose myself as much as possible to the field that I was getting into. So that was a whole experience. So I was working in the ER as a tech, trying to get exposure, and just found that I just fell in love with it. The trauma, just the fast-paced adrenaline of it. I really fell in love. So I knew that once I got my license, that was, the path that I wanted to take. And fortunately, with nursing, there's so many different fields that you can go into. And if you get burned out on one, you can, transfer and do something else. So after I graduated, I stayed in the ER and was working night shift, weekend option down in the ER. Had just had a baby, so that was hard, but it was wonderful. And that was in the ER. I met your brother down there. He was working the truck at Perry County. John was one of the smartest people I've ever met in my whole life when it came to medicine. I mean, just flat good. Some people are just, they have it. So anyway, to kind of jump in, whenever I was still a tech in the ER, the first exposure that I ever had to flight nursing was there. And I'll never forget it. It was a gentleman that was having a heart attack. We called for air evac to come, and there was a nurse. His name was Dave Maver, and he worked for air evac in Evansville. And whenever those doors opened and they came in and just saved this guy and swooped him up, it was like it was a literal Superman situation, just like they got him out of there. They were so quick, they were so knowledgeable. And I mean, I'll never forget it. In that moment, I was thinking, if I could do something like that, that will be like the epitome of my career. I mean, that'd be the greatest thing that I've ever done. So I was in the ER for off and on, probably about 10 years on and off. I wanted to get good at it, really kind of hone that craft. And then after a while, I was like, I want to challenge myself and see if I could do something more. So I started working at Deaconess Downtown in Evansville. And that was a really, really cool experience. It was a level 1 trauma center. So you're seeing the worst of everything, I mean, stabbings, shootings, trauma, from adult to pediatric, some accidental, some not, some intentional. So just really heavy stuff, but I loved it. And it was a really cool job. There was a gentleman that I worked with whenever I was there. He was a nurse, and his name was Kirby Russell. And that was another guy that's inspired me to get to where I am. But He was like the manager, or we would call him the program director of Aravac in Evansville. And so I worked with him on and off, for about an hour or for about a year, just asking him questions constantly, like, what do you guys do? How did you get so smart to be able to do that? Just constantly. And so after about a year, a position came open, and I went home and talked to John about it, and just really went over the details of like, what would this look like, can we do this, um, because some people might not know, but EMS works 24-hour shifts, and that was a lot to consider. So and then we went down that path. So
I'll say just to hop in here real quick. I mean,
yeah.
I love how you like, it was fantastic how you walked through high school and college and how you like segued right into your career, because it really just tied it all together really well, because it's just like you've seen a lot of it. It makes me think of some of the comments tonight, because you can tell within the comments that there's people that you're inspiring, but you're also talking about these people that have inspired you to take that next step. I know one of the questions that comes to mind for me is like when you started making those steps, like especially when you talked about area evac, that was one of them that really stood out to me, is because when you were talking about it, it's like I could also almost feel myself there in the moment, and I couldn't imagine like that rush that you had,
Yeah.
just like just witnessing the whole thing. And I can see that being enough to where, especially with your mindset and everything, that would like really intrigue you or really inspire you to get involved. And you noted a lot of different people too, that you're picking up a lot of different traits about him. You mentioned John Matt earlier, about that's one of the things that was probably his greatest trait of all, was he was gifted with brains. Like he could definitely had, like I describe, like photographic memory. A lot of times he could just remember
Yeah.
like he was always got credit for his medical experience. And it's cool that to know that he had an impact on you in that certain way too. But I did want to acknowledge some of the comments. Again, these came a little bit earlier, but Jamie Lynn said Grandma Harding would be so proud of you. And Carrington England says your hair looks fab. You're the coolest person. So she's got all dolled up tonight for the podcast. So, but it's awesome though. Like Natalie, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Like I said, there's a lot of things
Thank you.
over there. There's actually a tidbit. I did want to acknowledge another comment that just came in. Katie Thorne says one of the biggest inspirations on my nursing career. So that's what I love, is seeing the comments about how you've impacted other people, because that was probably something that went through your mind maybe whenever you're kind of like up and coming, I want to call it, whenever you feel like you're just kind of working your way through the journey. Maybe you still are. I don't want to, we're still in our mid to late 30s or whatever myself. So I'm pushing 40 now more than anything. So we can say that we're still seeing a lot ahead of our path and everything. But for you, you had a lot of those moments where I think you had people that you're really inspired by you. But looking back on it now, like when you see these comments, examples like Katie's and them themselves, how does that make you feel to know that you've been having an impact on people, and maybe some of these in a deeper level than what you even realized?
It's just so incredibly humbling, because there was a time whenever I was a brand new nurse, and there's such a thing as older nurses eating their young, is what we call it. You just got to kind of figure it out, and I never wanted to be like that. I've had fantastic people that I've worked with throughout my whole career, and that have helped me, help me fix my dumb mistakes, help teach me a better way to do it, have had my back with, violent, belligerent patients, just so many different scenarios. And I have been lucky like that in every job that I've had. There's just too many to even name, but the fact that other people are inspired by me is, it's almost too much to even wrap your head around. You just don't realize that you're making a difference to somebody else, but it's awesome. I'm so happy that I could help somebody like that.
No, I love that. I can tell it definitely warms your heart. But again,
Yeah.
keep the comments coming. I know that I really love It's great to see the support that Natalie's getting tonight. I know we're going through a lot here and different things, and we're touching on her career. So I can think of a lot of questions there to ask you again when it goes back to me
Go
talking
ahead.
about. I don't think I have uh, that ability myself to be involved in the medical field at any level that you're in. And like one of the things I wanted to ask you is that strength that I talked about. I talked about that in the promotional posts I've said about you, and those that are in the medical field too. Those that are also in there too, that are in the medical field, you're welcome to comment on this particular question too. I'd love to hear your responses. I'm sure Natalie would too. But again, talking about whatever level that you've been in, I'm sure you've had different experiences with this. So I'm kind of curious, like, you can't possibly have every day where it's just like, oh, that was a great day and every day's just been awesome. Like you kind of talked about different patients and people with different personalities. So I'm sure you have your days where just like it really makes you question, like, man, like, am I really in the right field of work? Or like certain moments that make you question yourself or question those around you, or just have like a particularly bad day. I'm kind of wondering about for you, like, what are some of those particular like hard moments that you've kind of dealt with at different levels? And you can use examples from each job if you want to, but can you talk a little bit about some certain moments or whatever that stick out to you that kind of shook you a lot? And obviously you bounce back from it because you're still in it, but what are some of them that have really kind of shaken you, that you can kind of relate to on that particular question?
So I guess to kind of answer that question, I have to kind of catch you up on where I'm at right now. So after I left the ER, I flew for about 5 years for Aerovac. And then just scheduling, and whatnot, it just wasn't the best thing for the family. I'm married and we have 4 boys. So it was just getting harder and I didn't want to miss things, them growing up and whatnot. So for about the last 2 years, I have been working as a hospice nurse and I work for Heart to Heart. And that was a complete 360 shift of what I was doing before. Before it was, I didn't care what you looked like, what injury or trauma that you had, it was going to be, we were going to throw everything we could to save you. And now, essentially, we want to give them quality of life versus quantity of life. I got into this knowing that I'm going to lose every single patient that I have. And, that in itself is daunting some days, but there has definitely been a few cases that I'll never ever forget. Most particularly, and just to put this out there, the family gave me the okay to talk about it, and they're on board with that. But so I, so I had my best friend's dad as a patient. He was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer, and he came to me and told me and my husband about it because we were both very close to him, along with my friend Amber and her entire family, and asked if I would take care of him whenever that time came, and if things didn't work out and there was no options. So of course I agreed. And I didn't go into that situation blindly. I knew that this was going to be something that was going to be really hard for multiple different reasons. There's layers that you just never want to let anybody down, but there's just that extra pressure of, you just want to make sure that you give them the best quality of life and the most peaceful transition that that you can have. So I took Wes on as a patient, and that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Amber and her sisters and her mom and John, they loved that man infinitely, and I did too. And I just, to know Wes is to love him. He had the voice and the personality the size of the world. I mean, anytime you were around him, he had advice to give. If you went to the garage, you were going to get love from him, and it was an amazing thing. And to have him as a patient, it was rough. It was really hard. The expectations I set for myself were very high. And I also just wanted him, to be as peaceful as I could. And so I learned something from that case, that, I'll always take away from it. And, me and Amber are closer because of it. Me and her family are closer because of it. John and I are closer because of it. It was terribly hard, but I wouldn't take it back for a second. I mean, he's one of the best guys I've ever known. And I'm just so blessed that I got to be there for him.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, Natalie, to give you a little bit of a break there too. You might have a cameo here with one of the kids.
I'm sorry, but this is real stories, real life right here.
Hey, it is. It's part of life. It's the way I've had kids make cameos. I know Lucy Goffman's son made a cameo on here.
Oh my gosh.
No, we got some great comments that have come in as well, but that was one of the powerful stories that I really was hoping you were going to tell tonight. And I do want to acknowledge, also in agreement with Natalie, that I also spoke with Amber too and the family, that we had gotten their permission to do that respectfully, because we don't want to have any kind of problems or anything. But it was obviously a powerful story. I mean, I knew enough of the background just by your Facebook posts, Natalie, and that was one of the real big main drives that I saw. That, like, man, I was like, Natalie's like a very high character person, and that was a story that whenever I reached out to you about doing a podcast, that I remember stuck with me. I told Amber that even, and of course they were all for it. I mean, they're also commenting on here now, so they've been saying too. But I have to commend you for your strength. Like, you got through that story there. I know there's some questions I'd love to ask you about going forward, but
Sure.
But I will say, Wes, didn't know him as well as other people, but I would say it's fair enough to say that he was another one of those characters in our book of life that you just feel like is never going to go away. Like, you feel like they're a staple within your life. And that's one of the things I think I had mentioned this to Amber, that I can relate to, on the fact that I've also lost my father. Again, it's a hard experience to lose your parent. Many of us in here have. Many of you that still have your parents, it's another thing to take notice of, because you just never know whenever all of our times are going to be here. But these are different experiences. My father as well also passed away from cancer. He was also in hospice care, so that was something that was difficult to do. Now, I will also say that the hospice care that we got back then sound like it very much mirrored what yours has. It didn't have as much of the personal touch because of the person who was in it, but the person was very kind, very professional. Now, for you, I'm like Amber and Amanda's comment on here. I'm going to acknowledge their comments, but I'd like to ask Amber and Amanda and the family too. Like, looking back on it now too, like, I'm sure you would not want anybody else to be that person other than Natalie, because it was like it was fitting that it was you. Now, like, one of the questions that I'll ask in a second, because there's several comments I definitely need to go back and say, because I'll get too far behind. But I know Elizabeth Owens said earlier, she said, "Love you, Nat." She actually said it in all caps and stressed the "you." And Jordan Turner commented and said, "Give a few hearts on there." Kaylin Hawley, she says, 21 years old, and I never thought I'd be where I am today. She has a special place in my heart, and it's a true honor that I had the opportunity to see her doing her job, doing her thing on the job, and me getting to be next to her. Just watching made me open my eyes to so many things, and I'm so thankful I got that opportunity. So thanks for sharing that awesome comment. And then when you started talking about the story and everything too, I know Amanda Marie commented and said, "I can't imagine going through any of that without you and John." Referring to that experience there. Amber said he absolutely loved you, talking about Wes, her dad.
Oh, gosh.
Like I said, the comments are still coming. Amanda did. She went on to say, "You have an absolute heart of gold and immense strength." And then Amber also commented and said he was the best. And Katie Thorne, I'm just going to keep these comments, because this alone is just is great stuff. But Katie ended up going on to say, Amber has said he was the best, referring to her dad. And then Katie said they couldn't have had a better person in their corner in that time. And Amber Rogie, she ended up saying, "We were so lucky to have her. He was so comfortable with her and wouldn't have wanted it any other way." And those are, like I said, I'm going to make sure that I didn't miss any more comments there. But yeah, that's kind of caught up to speed, and please feel free to continue commenting. But again, Natalie, I could visibly tell that those comments it hit home to you hard. Like,
Well,
I don't.
it's just, I'm sitting here thinking, like, they're the ones that lost their dad and, their father figure or whatever. And, they're thinking me, it's just, it just goes to show, like, something like that, like a tragedy, really can bring people together. And um, that family has just been nothing but solid together since that, and just still so amazing. And like you were saying earlier about, you know, it's almost like Wes is never gone, because they celebrate him. Every time that we grill out over here or we listen to Garth Brooks, I'm sending Amber and Amanda a Snapchat and telling them, it's a West night over here, and we still talk about him all the time. And I think that that's so therapeutic for people. Somebody that's lost, and this isn't just in Wes's case, but a lot of patients that I've had. Um, don't be scared to go up and mention, whatever family member it was that they've lost. I mean, they want to talk about them. I mean, think about how long it may have been since they've heard their name said out loud by somebody else. And, it's really, I'm just so fortunate that I have people in my life like that. Just, I love all of them so much.
First said something to me on the phone that stuck with me is that, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll paraphrase it on this end. But I know you guys were close before that. John also has a connection to them as well. But you kind of said it best earlier too, that tragedy does have a way to bring people closer together. And although it's a very hard story to tell, there still could be a lot of good that comes from different things like this. And one of that I remember Amber mentioning is how you guys actually grew closer because of it, because of that experience. And still are close to this day. And I think it'll always be that way, if it only gets stronger over time, because no matter what you think it's just kind of like, again, we're focused on your story, but like when you look at Amanda and Amber and their family story too, you'll always be a character in those great moments, but also in the hard moments too. Like you are, that's the thing that sticks out to me there more than anything, is like you and John both are family. Like Amber and them, you might not be by blood, but you are family. And in that moment, like I said, I don't think they would want anybody else there. There's several other comments, again, Amber and Amanda both did, that Amber says, I didn't want to leave him while he was sick and my girlfriends were planning a Florida trip. He made me and Natalie go and gave us money to have drinks and live life. That's awesome. It's a selfless act too. Amanda Marie says, you helped Dad find peace, and that has brought us peace. And we love you so much. She's gonna make me cry now. But no, Amanda, those are both of you. Thank you for the comments. Obviously, like you can visibly tell, it means so much to Natalie to hear that. But and again, I don't mean this to be too personal and put you guys on the spot either. Amanda, Amber, you're welcome to comment on this in the chat. But Natalie, you kind of talked a little bit about what you felt. We touched a little bit on what what that went through with Wes and then the family. But you're also, when you're taking care of Wes, you're also seeing this experience firsthand with your best friend, with your family, like them. So can you talk a little bit about that at all? Like what was some of the things that stuck out to you back then? And it don't have to be like in a bad way. I mean, it just could you sense or feel, and whenever you were there a lot, that heaviness that would weigh on them, and the opportunities you would try to use to try to help comfort them? Is there different things that stuck out to you about the family that you remember back then?
Yeah, I mean, as being her best friend, you always wanted to, after you each had, you had the visit, I would always kind of call her and give her the rundown of what I thought, this week versus last week. And you just always, I always wanted to give her just a little bit of good news, even if I could tell that, things were starting to go downhill in one way or another. A little bit of pain more here or whatever. And, Amber is one of the most brilliant nurses I've ever worked with. So it's not like she couldn't pick up on it too, but you always want to give just a little bit of good news. So I remember always, like, even if there was, a med change that I had to make, or, I had to increase this, from what it was, I would always at the end be like, but he gave me a hug, bye. And, he, asked about what John was going to make this weekend on the grill, or, he was in a good mood whenever I left. And, I mean, giving bad news is it's part of my gig. It's part of what I have to do. But in that situation, like, I would have given the world not to. I mean, you always wanted to give something good, and I tried to, even if the visit itself wasn't good, or even if he wasn't that day. But I tried to always give her a positive, and that was hard. I remember all the kids. So after Wes found out that he was, not doing well, we had a big party, of course, because that's what he likes to do. And that's what we like to do with them. So we went to the garage and we cooked a bunch of food and played music, and we all danced, and uh, it was like, I feel like it was like the last time that all of us were together, and it was like really good. And I know that the kids are just so thankful that we did that. And we just had no idea, how quick things would turn, or what was going to happen. But I just remember all of us sitting around just talking about how thankful we were that we did that, and just how much they all came together for each other. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Well, I would say what comes to mind there too is just it's like you're celebrating his life before his life had come to end. I mean, it's a fitting way, and it sounds like it's a fitting West way. It's like the way that he would to do that. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know if he'd want to sit. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person that would want to just sit around and mope. Like if this is it, it's
He
kind of like,
never did.
go celebrate. Let's go. Let's go try to make another great memory that we're all going to be able to be appreciative. I know there's several more comments I want to acknowledge again. Amber, she ended up saying that that's where John got his cooking skills.
It absolutely is.
I'm kind of wondering if that's on the grill, if that's like grill skills, because that makes me think of my father-in-law. My father-in-law taught me my grill skills. But Katie Thorne, she says Amber is an awesome nurse, another one of my inspirations. So there you go, Amber. You're getting some comments as well. She's probably cried over too. But no, Amanda Marie, she ended up saying, "I am so grateful for that day," and I'm, she's referring to, obviously the get together. But that was one of the SE too. Just kind of reverting back before that, but you talked about getting into hospice. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of got this vibe from you on the Facebook post that was Wes, your experience with Wes, was that fairly early on in your hospice journey, or was that like, or have you already had several cases or whatever you want to call it before?
I mean, I wasn't a baby hospice nurse, but I had been in it for about 6 or 8 months, I guess. So, I mean, I had been a nurse for a long time, but newer to hospice.
Oh, cameo. I get stuck his face in there. I hope he comes back and watches this like 30 years from now and be like, man, I look like such a or something. But no, it's just no, it's awesome. I love the little cameo on there. There's some great comments in here again that I just acknowledge. But that was something that stuck with me real quick, was just I thought that was very early on in your kind of your journey in that particular career. So I think that made it even more emotionally charged in a way. And I'm sure, again, Perry County, small town. I don't know how far you branched out in hospice care, but you're probably going to end up, or you have dealt with a lot of people that you know, at least on a certain extent, or you will know. So that's got to be a tougher within a smaller area. I know some of the comments again, Amber says that's where we get our love for music from, referring to her dad. Actually, Nicole Chapman, she says, I am so blessed to work right beside you, friend. And Amber Roji put a bunch of heart faces, and then Katie Thorne says, hi, Cutler. I don't know what that one's.
That was my son that did the cameo.
Okay. Amanda says also, we love Color Wayne, so they also get this. That's great. I know I'm saving your immediate family towards the end, because I think that's a great lighter note to talk about John and the kids and everything too. But no, I mean that the hospice journey alone, I was thinking, man, that's another part that I don't know if I could, because again, you said it best earlier. You went from being in the field of work where you're doing everything you can, you and your team around you, to use all the resources at your capability to save people's lives, and now you're in a position where you're trying to ease people's suffering and comfort them towards their end, or whatever it be. And you touched on a very powerful story with Wes and that family. Like, much respect to them. I know they're also originally from Counton. I remember them living not too far down the road. Known Amber since we were kids as well, and Amanda. So it's also cool for me, just to give you some feedback on it. It's awesome to hear that story, even though it's very heartfelt and powerful. It's cool to hear that story of all you guys having that connection, though. And you always will now, even though Wes, and I'm sure, like I said, even Wes came to you and wanted you and John's involvement to that level, because again, I think that was just fitting for that way to be, that you were the one to take care of him in that situation there. But yeah, much respect to that. people in the medical field as well. But yeah, just to take more of a little bit of a different spin, you mentioned being part of the trauma unit as well too. So like you said, you saw all kinds of things from
Yeah,
children
sure did.
to adults of all ages. I mean, that's something that I definitely couldn't imagine doing myself alone. But I mean, I'm sure you can think of a lot of moments from then, or even the air evac and different experiences there that again just tie back to where there's just some people I just don't think I'm one of them that is not capable of doing that. Like I think I could act on the fly, but having that as a career day in and day out, I don't know if I could handle the emotional toll for a while. But
Yeah.
that's the thing I think emotionally strong that you guys have from. So another good spin I think I had organic question for you is having these days where I'm sure you have a lot of wins. I'd love for you to talk about the days that you call wins, where you saved a life or you helped someone take care of somebody. Those are things that you probably come home with a real big sense of pride in your difficult days. Is there a lot of days that you come home to your family now and it makes you think of your job where you kind of take things from your job, those rewards and those moments that you have, accomplishments, and apply them at home with your kids? Does it make you feel like you've grown closer to your family because of your job as well?
I think there's a lot of positive feedback to come out of this, even though, on the outside, you may look at it and think, that must be, so hard. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are days that it absolutely is, but there's also the days where, you have a patient that has been struggling with pain for so long since, they got their cancer diagnosis or whatever ailment that they may have. And they just couldn't get it under control. There was limitations on what their doctors could do. And then, you tell them like, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make you feel better. Like if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to make sure that you're comfortable. And then whenever you achieve that, and you see the relief on their face, and not just them, but their family, and just something as small as that, just being able to give them, what they need to be comfortable. And I mean, it's amazing whenever the things finally click and you can get somebody comfortable and give them quality of life, and tell them that, like, you don't have to go to the doctor anymore. You don't have to go to the hospital or the ER. Like, I'm going to be your middleman. I'm going to take care of all that for you. We're not going to not treat you. We're just going to focus on quality. And we don't have to do all these big procedures anymore. Like, we can just keep you at home and keep you comfortable. And I mean, in essence, that's, what you go in and try to explain to somebody in the beginning. And whenever they see, you can see like the relief on their face. Like, like, I don't have to fight tooth and nail every day. Like, I can just sit here and kind of relax and enjoy my days. And there's just it's amazing to see that for people, to give them a sense of peace.
Yeah. One of I'll tell you one of the underrated things I have, and this is my experience of recently over the years of, John Matt's medical situation, all around, like from Tell City to Louisville and different places. I've seen you in action, at least dealing with Mama Malcomson, which can be an experience of itself just because of her hearing situation right now. But one of the things I think is very underrated about you and also those that are in the medical field is the communication aspect of whenever you're dealing with the patient. Like I see a lot of you, and I mean this in a very complimentary way, is like it also takes a very high level of patience too, because you're when you're communicating with an actual patient, but you're also communicating with their family members. You're delivering difficult news sometimes, and sometimes you're delivering rewarding news. But one of the things I noticed about you, like when you took care of Mom, for example, was just you had this, like, the way you convey messages to her was calming. Like, and it actually would calm Mom down too, because she was kind of in a panic mode, like she doesn't understand what's going on. And even though they haven't quite figured out what's going on, you guys you did a great good job of, I want to call it like a more like a realistic optimism kind of way. Like it was a very optimistic kind of way you guys would deliver. It was you and several other of the medical staff. But I think that's something that I've seen you in person do and other roles in the medical field too, that communication aspect is so important because you have a lot of time.
And it's the communication also, but it's also something so huge in this job is the education. You have to walk into an unknown situation with people that you've never met before, you're all on the same page about, the patient is now terminal, and you have to immediately be able to make them feel comfortable, because they have to feel comfortable in order for them to trust me. And, I need them to trust me, because I'm going to be talking about, big medications and big decisions, over the next couple weeks, months. And, they have to have that trust and that education to put it into play. And that's just, that's something that I've had to develop and that I've gotten better at. But it makes their life so much easier whenever they can trust me and they have all the education that they need to know what to do and how to do it. And, it's a lot for somebody, especially like a lay person that, doesn't have any medical background or any training. And, you're kind of empowering them to take care of their loved ones in their home. And it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah. And just to be, and this is another comment I wanted to make too, again, on the communication part, but I've seen a couple of poor instances of this with the medical staff before, and it could have just been a bad day that someone was having. But majority of the time, I see a lot of positive ones. But you strike me as someone that would be good at this as well. As when you talk about the education part, it made me think of this is whenever you have like a family member come in or someone that's as a patient, and you're talking with the family, they're trying to figure out what's going on. You guys would figure out what it is, but you have to. I think one of the bigger challenges that you guys do in your medical field is you've done all this schooling and all this education to understand all the technical terms that involve all the different types of things that could be involved with diseases or conditions and things and how to treat them. So it has to be a very interesting balancing out to be able to like explain a diagnosis to a family, but also put it in simpler terms to where they understand it. Because how many cases have you guys had in the medical field where you tried to explain a certain technical side of things and some of the family doesn't understand what it means? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Good or bad or what? Or like, what's that mean? So then you guys have to explain that in simpler terms, which is good. You find that in every profession you go to, even in mine and manufacturing. Now, I could explain something in technical terms, but it's also important for me to circle back around in a simpler term. Just that way they have a better understanding of like what you can relate to. That's something that I noticed a majority of those in the medical field I've dealt with that really did a good job providing to our family about John Matt and also with mom and her different things too, because she battled breast cancer and beaten that. So there's a lot of good communication there about, I don't understand everything around breast cancer, but they made it very, the way they convey the messages, both in Owensboro and the other places that we went to, that they had a good job of doing that. I kind of wanted to ask you that as a question too. Is that something you think about that might cross your mind sometimes too, whenever you might be talking in a medical, like technical term, but do you have a lot of situations where you would find yourself kind of circling back to make sure the whole family or everybody involved understands the situation? Do you have moments like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think more whenever I was doing trauma and flying, there was a lot of complex procedures that we would do, or complex injuries that, you couldn't just explain to a family member. You'd have to definitely put it into terms like, we're going to have to breathe for them, with a tube down their throat, or, we had to help them breathe by putting a tube into their chest, definitely make it a little bit more to where they wouldn't just understand all around. But, honestly, with hospice, I have found, especially with the patients that we take care of in the home, that they've been dealing with this for a lot longer than what we have. That patient in particular, fighting, the cancer as severely as they could, or, whether it's, grandma with Alzheimer's and they've had to see her and watch all the declines and stuff. I feel like they're very up to date on, everything that's happened and what kind of procedures next, or all the different chemos that we've tried and that just wasn't, we weren't able to do. But there's definitely some situations where, they just, like you said, haven't had any kind of training or anything like that. So we need to, definitely put it in a situation where they understand it. You're taught that from the very beginning to put it to a level, that they would be able to understand. So I think in every situation through nursing, I've had to do that. And then there's been families that have more ability to understand. It's just a very unique situation on what they need.
Yeah. Really good description of that, Natalie. I appreciate that. I did want to acknowledge a comment that came in earlier. Amber, she had to leave, unfortunately, but she said, I got to get to class. Love you and so proud of you. I will replay later. Thanks for talking about my dad. So I love that.
Yeah,
It's awesome to have the family on there during that story too. So that was great. I know we're kind of nearing the.
she's
Go ahead.
she's supported me through everything that I've ever done. I mean, she delivered my youngest baby. Um, every every station of life, we've been there together. Mm-mm.
It's awesome. Well, this is one of the questions I love to kind of usually whenever I end this chapter with is when we talk about the younger generation, those that are either just getting involved or maybe considering, like maybe they're in high school and they're considering getting involved in the medical field at whatever level it might be. Now that you're in it and you've been in it for years, I'm sure you probably could have your share of advice for these different people or the younger generation that's considering getting involved in that. Like, so when you really think about, like, if you were to give advice to someone, a friend or someone younger that's considering getting involved in it, what would be that advice that you would have, no matter what level it is, whether it's like nursing, hospice, perivac, anything involved with the medical field? What would be some of the advice you'd give them?
Be passionate about what you do. Find the area that lights you up. I mean, like for a couple of my girlfriends, like Amber and Elizabeth, it's OB and they love it. Like me, I would probably work in a factory before I do that. Like it's not my thing. Whatever that thing is though that you have that you want to get into, be passionate about it. Don't stop learning. Like go and I mean, like Amber, she's in school right now getting her BSN. I mean, we've got work and we've got kids and husbands, and she's continuing to push herself, and that's why she's such a great nurse. And I've always tried to do that myself. I've always tried to, not get complacent in what I'm at. I mean, yes, I've been a nurse for 13 years, but I mean, I still want to keep learning and I want to be better at it. And, each different area that I'm in, there's something to learn. So yeah, be passionate, keep learning. Don't settle for a position that doesn't make you happy. I mean, there's too many different opportunities out there for you to find something that clicks with you. And that's how a lot of nurses now are getting burnt out. They get in a position, they don't like it, and it's work to them. It's not the dream that they thought it was. Take time to spend with your patients. You're going to be crazy the entire 12 hours and you're not going to think you have the time, but sitting there and talking with them makes all the difference in the world. I mean, they want to feel like a patient. They don't want to feel like room 202. So, and I've learned that the hard way. I mean, these are all things that I've picked up myself. And also just stay in it. Just do the best you can. I mean, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna make mistakes, and just own up to it, move on.
Yeah, really good advice there, Natalie. I love it. I could think of more questions on top of that, just what you said. I want to acknowledge Katie Thorne's comment. She says it's such an amazing experience to watch one of your best friend's dreams come true after she worked so hard. I couldn't think of a more person. So, Natalie, getting shower with compliments tonight. You don't
I
even need
know
to
it.
shower with compliments.
Oh, it just makes me. Oh, how do you deal with that? But just thank
Well,
you so much to everybody.
no, I know. Crap, I'm going to say this name wrong. I'm sorry. Rhiannon Camel. She says you're amazing at what you do with the heart. So, am I pronouncing that?
Rhiannon. No,
Rhiannon.
that's Rhiannon. That's Amy Jo's daughter.
Okay. Well, she says you're amazing at what you do with a heart emoji on there as well. So I love the comments coming tonight. Well, some of the you said on the Vice there before we move on to your family again now to end the show is you mentioned burnout. That was something that stuck out to me. Can happen in any of our careers too, but like for you, I'm sure you've had at least certain moments where you started to feel that. Like how do you counter those type of feelings whenever you get burned? Like is it whenever you kind of lean on the hobbies that you have now, they kind of give you that therapeutic that you need, kind of like a little bit of escapism for a little bit, or like the time you spend with family?
I definitely like to call that my self-care. Just to kind of go back for just a second, you have to take care of yourself to do the job. Like there's a lot of days where you come home and, it's like a patient that you can reflect with, for whatever reason. Maybe they have kids that are your age, maybe they're the same age as your parents, or maybe it's just a really, rotten situation. They're just too dang young to have, a terminal diagnosis. Maybe you're questioning what you do because you just, it's just a really hard day for whatever reason. And I definitely have those. So I try my best to do things that I get out of my head whenever I'm at home. I try my hardest not to bring it home. I do. I mean, there's just no way that you can't sometimes, because, you grow to love these people. I mean, whether you should or not, whether you can't, I mean, you just can't stop yourself. And so there are days whenever I come home and, I'm still in my head a lot for work. And so I've been trying really hard to, take the time and do, like, getting a glass of wine with your girlfriends every chance you get, whether I take an hour to sit and read, I love reading. Whether I turn on my true crime podcast, like I'm into all that stuff. So
There
I
you go.
definitely, so I definitely try and make time for myself, because you will get burned out if you let it consume you.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. Like you mentioned the true crime podcast. Like just doing this podcast right now for me is one of those escapisms for me.
Mm-hmm.
Full-time jobs in manufacturing, and you're working, 10 to 12 hours a day, something like that, 4 or 5 days a week, sometimes 6. It can be a little bit tolling on you, especially whatever career you're in. But I love the fact that you shared that about what that feeling is like for you, the different hobbies that you lean on in family. I
Mm-hmm.
am one of those people that also struggle with trying not to take things home or taking things from home into work. It's one of those things, like wearing your heart on your sleeve kind of person. But anyways, yeah, like I'm guilty of that too, guilty as charged.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to say I love the comments, and I know Amanda seconded what Rhiannon had said. She said that she is the best, and then Amanda just went on to say,
Oh.
I love that Natalie brings beauty and light into a dark situation for everyone around her. She has a true niche for this. Beautiful. So that's awesome. That
Oh,
really
thank
means a lot
you.
to her. But Natalie, like I said, I know we were talking about some, definitely continue going on longer about your journey and everything. But with the show kind of getting towards the close, I did want to circle back
Sure.
with. I didn't want to think that we forgot about John and the kids too. I thought it was kind of a way. It's also a great way to kind of end the show too, because again, we went through your journey and everything. But when it comes full circle, a lot of the things that we do on a daily basis can be for our own challenges, but a lot of it is we go to work and we do different things that we do for our families. So I would like to kind of
Mhm.
show more towards about your family. So like, is there anything you'd like to tell us about John, your husband? And also feel free to talk about your kids. I know we got to see a cameo of one of them tonight. So can you tell us a little bit about
You
all of that?
heard the other one, yeah. So we have 4 boys. The oldest 2 are my stepsons. So the oldest one is Nolan. He's about to turn 14. Um, he's in every sport you can do. He's active nonstop. I mean, he's got the best personality. He's the most perfect big brother, our kids could ever ask for. He's responsible, mouthy at times, but just such a great kid. Like he's going to do amazing things in life. Nathan is 11, and he is confident. He is hilarious. Like he makes us laugh every day. He's also really into sports. He's an awesome baseball player. I love watching him play. Um, just he's smart. I mean, gets great grades. Him and Nolan, just really, really proud of both of them. And then my oldest one is Cutler. He is 10, about to turn 11. He's fantastic, that kid. He's super smart. He's very niche into what he likes. He's got the memory of, I mean, can remember anything. Super into science, does like the robotic stuff. Just a great, great kid. And then Brady, he's going to turn 4 next month. So he's me and John. So we have a his, mine, and ours situation. but it just blends together beautifully. I mean, whenever we talk about our kids, we have 4 boys. We don't have 2 here and one there. Um, and amazingly, all the kids, they just get along so great. I mean, like, it's like they've been together the whole time. Brady is John's exact twin. He is ready to wake up out of bed and build a house or go fishing or ride the mower, or we'll spend all day from morning to night outside. He's hilarious. He's a great kid. Me and John, we've been together since we started dating in 2012. We got married in 2015. He was working as a paramedic then. He works for Ohio Valley Gas now, in town. Whenever I left Airvac and went to a more kind of standard hour job where I'm working, a day shift kind of thing, I was home every night, and he, seeing that, I didn't have to miss anything. He was tired of missing stuff with the boys. He wanted to be able to coach and all this. So, I mean, he gave up EMS, and he is without a doubt the smartest paramedic I've ever worked with. I mean, in my career, he is. I mean, he's just fantastic. He is he's amazing. He's my best friend in the whole world. I wouldn't be here as far as my career and as happy as I am without him. He's the best dad I've ever met. He works so hard every day. He takes wonderful care of us. I mean, it's such a 50-50 relationship, and some days it's 90-10. Like, whenever I come in and he can just tell that I'm like in my feels and I've had a hard day, he completely takes the slack on everything. And then on those other days, I mean, things just go. I mean, like, we just work really well together as far as taking these kids and building a life together. We've been through a lot of hard stuff together, and I wouldn't have ever applied for AirVac. I would have never went to hospice. He had the confidence in me that I didn't have in myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like you guys make each other stronger. I'm sure John would say positive things, but
I hope so.
yeah, for a long time too. And I know some of the things that stick out to him is John always had, even back in high school, I thought this too, but at least whenever I remember riding around with him a little bit, whenever he was a cop for a little while, and
Mhm.
I know some years ago now, but John had a unique ability of knowing when to be very professional, but also when to keep things kind of light. He also
Oh, yeah.
he had a good way of balancing between the two. And I do remember John. I don't know how close they've been over the years, but at one time I remember his connection with John Matt, and he looked up to
Oh,
him very much. I remember he saw John Matt, I think, as a mentor or role model too. So I know they
100%. Yeah. He thought
yes,
the world of him.
I think he had a lot of respect for him. It makes me think of a lot of people. Derek Llewellyn talked highly of John Matt even as well. So,
Mhm.
but no, it's just awesome to hear how supportive. The word supportive comes to mind with John. I think the way you described him and the kids is just an awesome way to kind of wrap up the show in a sense too, because
Yeah.
it really kind of encompasses that life at home. Whenever we kind of covered that life, whenever you're out there and you have good days and hard days, you guys are very 50-50, but like you said, whenever it feels 90-10, sometimes John,
Yeah.
he steps up, and that's one of the things I think that mean a lot. But I have no doubt that he'd say nothing but positive things about you too. But I think that I did want to acknowledge some of the comments before we get closing thoughts though. Susie Vogt, she says, "Hi Natalie, I have known your mom since grade school. Love her and your dad since high school. You look beautiful just like your mom." And then
Ugh.
Marie says, Emran says, "I love you, Natalie." So I think I'm
Who
saying,
said that?
I
I
think it's
missed
one
the name.
of her kids' names. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Emran, is that right?
Amron. Yeah. Okay.
Emran says, "I love you, Natalie." Uh, and then Amanda went on to say, when you talk about how people are made for each other, they're talking about John and Natalie, two of the best
Mm.
people I know and lucky to call family. So great comments throughout the whole show. Awesome comments through the whole show. I've been loving them. Great. But I know Natalie, I know we're going to closing thoughts here. So you've made it. You've made it to the finish line.
I did.
I mean, I can give you my feedback first, and then I'd like to give you, some time to talk about how this experience has been. But I knew you were a little bit
Okay.
nervous coming in, but you did an outstanding job. I mean, even from the jump, whenever we went live, it felt like you were very comfortable. Talk about your family. Like as soon as you started talking about your mom and dad, it just was like, woo. You can feel like it looked like that nervousness just went away because it was down there. But I think you did an outstanding job, and I don't think you should be ashamed at all about showing your emotions either, because I think it just shows you how big of a heart you have, but also how much it means to you that these people you care about are saying these things about you and meaning them. I mean, it's very powerful stuff. I feel like if this is another episode, I can say that I'm going to cherish. I feel like I've learned a lot from it. It makes me feel like a better human being just getting to speak with you, hearing back from some of our mutual friends and people that I'm not familiar with just yet, but those are people that just to hear them talk about you, it feels more like validation again. Like I know Natalie's a great person, a fantastic human being, very strong person, and these people are just validating that. So that's awesome to see. But Natalie, this is your show, so I have to ask you, what's this experience been like? Like whenever you go back, we kind of cover like right through two chapters where we talked about difficult stuff, but we also talked about your family. Talked about Perry County. We talked about high school days. We talked about the beer garden at Schweitzerfest. Even I mean, it's a lot in it, but we topped it all off with your family, with your kids and John. So you kind of look back on all this. Is this an experience that you're glad you got to take part in?
Oh yeah. I mean, I just feel like it was really fluid. Like I didn't think that I felt like I was going to struggle to find the words, to say some of the things I wanted to say just because, it's such a sensitive topic about a lot of things and there's so many emotions tied up to, hospice care and nursing in general. And it was really easy. You're really easy to talk to. I felt really comfortable, you know. I mean, it was a great experience, honestly. Like, wouldn't mind coming back sometime.
Please do. I mean, I'd love to have these like revisits sometimes where we can touch base. But no, Natalie, that's the biggest compliment I think I can get is just the fact that if I can make my guests feel comfortable. I know this is
Mhm.
especially a lot of them too. I've had a lot on that have never been on a podcast before, and many probably in the future too. So to me, it feels very rewarding to me to see like at the end and you smiling and you're not like running out of the podcast like halfway through it. But again, I know we're kind of ending towards the show here. So if anybody had any closing thoughts in chat, feel free to drop that in there while we're talking, or, like Natalie, I'm sure we'll be able to go back and read those later on. But I just want to thank the audience more than anything is for coming out tonight. I know there's a lot of things going on. We're here on Monday night too. Many of us got to work tomorrow and stuff. Basketball's going on, a lot of different things. People's probably watching true crime podcasts too or something, but they're taking the time to watch us, Natalie, to listen to talk to you.
I
So
know.
yeah,
I
really
really
appreciate
appreciate
the
it.
support. Yeah, I appreciate the support that Natalie's gotten tonight, and also like Amber and their family and Amanda and all you guys. It was awesome just to tell that story, and like I said, that alone, you guys just did a really good job between you, especially, but also Amanda and Amber's comments and chat. It really puts you there in that moment with them. Like you feel that pain, but you feel that comfort too, and you feel that strength that you guys have had all from it. That was one of the really profound stories that came from this episode. But I also, when you describe Perry County, we're here living in it, and it just kind of warms your heart when you think of it, like when other people describe the county or the towns. When you talk about your family, it makes me appreciate my family even more, your mom and dad. It makes me think of my
Mhm.
dad. Wes makes me think of my dad. There's just a lot of different things that I could take from this experience. But more than anything, I loved it, Natalie, and I hope that someday we can definitely do it again because it would be awesome. So, but again, I'm glad that I acted on the feeling and reached out to you and had you on the show, and it's just
Me too.
fantastic. Patty Taylor, she commented and said, "Thank you, Ben." Patty, appreciate the support on the podcast. Again, feel free to share this even after the show's over. You can can also do that privately. The show will always stay public. And again, at probably about an hour or two from now, I'll have it up on YouTube and Spotify, and I'll be able to tag you on those as well, Natalie. But if you don't mind, just hang around a little bit longer when we close out here. But for the audience, we'll have the next show will be actually this coming Wednesday night. It's going to be a makeup show from Friday. Rob Moskis of Carrollton, Indiana, he's going to be joining me to talk about a lot of awesome things, his time in the Peace Corps and living on a Navajo reservation, some of the projects they're doing in Carrollton, renovating a lot of the buildings there, and really livening up the town. That's one of the topics of the conversation that I can't wait to talk with him about as well. So that will be Wednesday night as well. So be on the lookout for that on my Facebook or different chapters where you can find us on Twitter and different other outlets. But more than anything, Natalie, it's been awesome. And again, this has been another story with real people and real stories behind it and everything. But we're really happy to have her on here. And like I said, the conversation within chat tonight was amazing. Really appreciate the support that we had there. So again, hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Monday night.
Yes.